Non, l'île Maurice, là, souvent, nous prend nous pour le nombril du monde. Nous connaissons les vrais, mais il ne faudrait pas dire aller. Ben oui, à nous prend ce qui est Chirine, ce qui est... Premier, nous qui avons introduit le ministère des droits de la femme, beaucoup d'années de cela. L'autre, la vie, ça. Mais nous prenons sur l'appel au sérieux, nous faire de nous l'île Maurice un modèle, un exemple dans le combat pour l'élimination de bonnes violences faites aux femmes et aux bonnes jeunes filles. Merci.
Et voilà, c'était donc l'allocution du Deputy Prime Minister, l'honorable Paul-Raymond Béranger.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's true that we've heard powerful messages this morning about our collective responsibility to end gender-based violence. It is now my honor to invite the Honorable Navin Chandra Ramgoolam, Prime Minister of the Republic of Mauritius, to officially launch this event and this exhibition.
Le Premier ministre, l'honorable Dr Navin Ramgoolam.
Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, the Minister for Women, Gender and Domestic Violence Prevention, the UNDP representative, Lord Mayor, the Honorable DPP, Chairperson of the Human Rights Commission, the Commissioner of Police, colleague ministers, members of Parliament, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests. It is a really sad reflection on the state of societies throughout the world, not just in Mauritius, that every year we have to focus on the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Every year, from the 25th of November, which is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, to the 10th of December, Human Rights Day, the Secretary General of the United Nations invites everyone to join together to prevent these violence. There is a global campaign called 16 Days of Activism against gender-based violence. And it is important that we take stock of what is the situation and how we can add our voices and actions to ensure that violence recedes, if not eliminated totally. Unfortunately, in the whole world, there is a lot of violence everywhere. We refer to more individual and silent, we should say, crimes that affect individuals, be it Vigasomi explained in detail to me especially how this, I think she wrote a whole thesis on this, and how it is that in the home, when the boy especially sees his father beating up his mother, he comes to the conclusion that this is normal. It is normal to beat a woman. This is where we have to attack the problem. It is at the very source. And we know that this kind of violence, it cuts across communities, all social strata. This is why we want to bring strong policies to address this scourge. Mauritius, I should add, it was the first country to have set up a dedicated ministry to deal with gender discrimination and adopt the strategies that will help the victims of violence. I commend the current minister, who is now actively restructuring the services of this very important ministry. But violence, as she said, concerns also other ministries. The Honorable Speaker also said that. In particular, the Ministry of Education and Human Resources, because children must be taught their rights and responsibilities and how to protect themselves and denounce those who have violence, any kind of violence, on them or on their parents. But also the Ministry of Youth and Sports. It also plays an essential role. We see violence, young adolescents, victims in the arena of sports. Also the Ministry of Information Technology and Communication. Cyber violence is also on the rise. We've seen recently a young girl committed suicide because of cyber violence. Madam Speaker, the National Assembly has a parliamentary gender caucus which you chair. And I understand that this caucus has decided, as you just said, to organize a full-fledged campaign during the 60 days to reach and sensitize the public on the need for every citizen to understand the issue of gender-based violence and to bring their own contribution to curb any form of violence. I noted the UND representative just said, and she's right, to bring us to task. Too few women in Parliament and too few women ministers. But we have to correct this, and I can assure you, we have brought a law, we introduced a law so that in the local government, you're bound to have 30% of women. It is law now, and it is working. Some people, at the time, you have some, especially men, who think this is not possible. You can't have a president of district council as women. They have become, and they work even better than the men, I should say. But we need to address this issue as well. And I can tell you, the Deputy Prime Minister and myself, we are going to bring forward this electoral reform that we are committed to bring. We are hoping, we're not just hoping, I think it will address this issue. Because with electoral reform, with a dose of PR, we should be able to address this problem of representations of women in Parliament. I commend the initiative of the Honourable Speaker to invite the population at large to this multi-media interactive exhibition and to bring their own proposals. This is a societal ill which deserves our full attention. We must be aware of it. Many people are not even aware that this exists. Many people think it's normal, it's normality. Each and every one of us should feel concerned with the present state of affairs. Government alone cannot deal with it. It is the responsibility of every citizen in this country. And this is how we can attain our objective of eliminating violence against women. And I want to end by thanking the UNDP for its support, and I'm pleased that Mrs. Bhatia the new resident representative of the UNDP, is with us today and will help us eliminate violence against mostly women, but also men. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Prime Minister, for those inspiring words and for officially launching this important initiative. And now invite once again the Honourable Shirin Ormodi Zifra, who has a special announcement. Madam Speaker.
Dear friends, I would ask you to stand up and keep 1 minute of silence for all, mostly women, but also other people. I just learned about what happened in Switzerland, for example, which concerns us. Let's stand and keep 1 minute of silence for everyone who died because of gender-based violence. Thank you. Prime Minister, may I ask you to come and sign the pledge, please?
Moment solennel ici au Sir Harry Al-Bakji Hall, où une minute de silence a été observée en mémoire de toutes les victimes, toutes celles qui ont perdu leur vie suite aux violences faites aux femmes. Voilà la signature de l'engagement par le Premier ministre, l'honorable Dr Navin Ramgoolam, un engagement pour dire non à la violence faite aux femmes et aux filles. Rappelons-le, cette initiative mondiale demande l'engagement et la conviction de tous les gouvernements et les États mondiaux pour arriver, selon l'ONU, à réduire le nombre de violences faites aux femmes jusqu'à 2030. C'est un parmi les SDGs de l'ONU. Pendant cette cérémonie, alors on voit maintenant le vice-premier ministre, l'honorable Paul-Raymond Béranger, qui lui aussi s'engage au nom de la République de faire reculer la violence faite aux femmes et aux filles. Un engagement, rappelons-le, qui vient du sommet de l'État et qui est un signal très fort. Un signal lancé à tous ceux qui commettent la violence. Et c'est au tour de la ministre de l'égalité des genres et du bien-être de la famille de signer cet engagement. Rappelons-le, un travail collectif, une initiative collective pour éliminer la violence faite aux femmes. Cette campagne de 16 jours qui commence à partir du 25 jusqu'au 10 décembre a pour objectif de sensibiliser les États, sensibiliser le monde entier du mal, de la souffrance. Et quand on parle de souffrance,
Our distinguished guests, some added their signatures to this important pledge today, ladies and gentlemen. The Speaker of the National Assembly will now lead our distinguished guests on a guided tour of the exhibition. This exhibition features powerful testimonies, interactive installations, and artistic expressions that shed light on the reality of gender-based violence and the pathways toward prevention and support. Have a nice visit, everybody.
alors cette exposition de tableaux qui a à l'initiative du bureau de la Speaker, l'honorable Shirin Ormodi Zifra. Donc nous voyons là la représentante de l'UNDP, Madame Al-Kabatia, qui elle aussi s'engageait pour dire non à la violence faite aux femmes. Alors le Premier ministre et la Speaker de l'Assemblée nationale qui, voilà, procèdent aussi. Ah oui, vous voyez sur la gauche l'arbre de la dignité et la Speaker de l'Assemblée nationale qui demande au Premier ministre d'écrire un petit mot pour les victimes et qui sera accroché à l'arbre de la dignité. Alors je vous le disais, la condition féminine dans le monde entier et la violence qui détruisent les familles, les enfants. Les enfants ne sont pas les témoins de la victime. Les enfants sont également victimes de violences quand la mère est violentée. Alors on voit les ministres qui s'engagent. Là on voit l'honorable docteur Arvin Boulel qui lui aussi signe cet engagement, ce pledge. Et le vice-premier ministre, l'honorable Paul Raymond Béranger, qui lui aussi s'engage, qui a eu des mots très touchants pour dire à quel point c'est important pour les hommes de défendre, d'être des féministes en fait.
Add your voice to the tree of dignity, like Madam Speaker just mentioned earlier. Discover as well the works of talented Mauritian artist Jessie Guria's paper collage exploring silence and invisibility, Tiffany Steffi Lutondry's leather, and also acrylic work on resilience and solidarity and much more. Have a nice visit and enjoy the exhibition, and don't forget the pledge. Thank you.
Alors, des tableaux ici exposés par des tableaux peints plutôt par des victimes elles-mêmes, mais on a aussi vu d'autres tableaux qui parlent de résilience, la résilience qui est importante. On a pu également voir des artistes présentes, notamment Nirmala Lekinaren, qui elle aussi a exposé un tableau, elle aussi qui milite pour la cause des femmes. Alors je vous rappelle cette exposition ici au Harilal Vakji Hall est ouverte à partir d'aujourd'hui au grand public, donc à partir de midi jusqu'à 15h. Et cette exposition qui sera ouverte tous les jours jusqu'au 10 décembre de 10 à 15h, sauf pour le dimanche 30 où la salle sera fermée au public. Et voilà, nous voyons l'honorable Ajay Ganesh qui lui aussi s'engage à éliminer la violence faite aux femmes. Une initiative honorable, louable par le bureau de la Speaker nationale. Le bureau de la Speaker de l'Assemblée nationale plutôt, l'honorable Chérine Omiroudi Zifra, que nous voyons à l'écran. Le Premier ministre, l'honorable docteur Navin Ramgoolam, qui est très attentif aux explications de la Speaker. Et l'arbre de la dignité qui attire les invités présents. C'est au tour de l'honorable Ashok Soubron, ministre de la Sécurité sociale et de l'intégration nationale, de signer cet engagement. Alors, je vous rappelle encore une fois cette exposition qui sera ouverte au public à partir de midi jusqu'à 15h tous les jours de semaine jusqu'au 10 décembre, à l'exception du 30 novembre où elle sera fermée, la salle sera fermée. comme vous pouvez le deviner, il fait une chaleur torride à Port-Louis. Il fait très très chaud. C'est déjà le début de l'été. Et une exposition importante. Alors si vous voulez vous déplacer, si vous voulez venir en famille pour voir cette exposition, c'est l'occasion pour vous de venir la voir. Alors, nous voyons une artiste, Nadine Jeanneton, qui s'adresse au vice-premier ministre, qui explique peut-être un petit brin de Cosette pour expliquer ce qu'elle a dessiné et peint. Alors, des invités toujours aussi engagés, aussi motivés pour signer cet engagement. C'est même la queue pour dire non à la violence faite aux femmes. Et ce qui est intéressant dans cet événement, on voit beaucoup d'hommes, notamment au sommet de notre République, les hommes qui veulent et qui sont intimement persuadés que la violence faite aux femmes a un impact sur la société. Les premières personnes qui souffrent aussi, ce sont les enfants, c'est la famille qui souffre. Et très souvent, cette souffrance se répercute également sur la communauté, la société aussi. Alors voilà le départ du Premier ministre, salué par la speaker de l'Assemblée nationale, l'honorable Chérine Omiroudi Zifra. Et les invités qui ont été appelés à visiter cette exposition pour mieux comprendre l'impact de la violence faite aux femmes. Et nous voyons aussi le départ du vice-premier ministre, l'honorable Paul-Raymond Béranger. Et voilà, mesdames et messieurs, c'est ici que prend fin le lancement officiel de cette campagne des 16 jours d'activisme contre la violence faite aux femmes et aux filles, une initiative mondiale dans laquelle l'île Maurice, la République de Maurice, a participé. Je vous dis merci de votre attention et à très bientôt.
Public Bill, second reading.
It had to be seconded. Yes, I'm sorry. Okay. Second reading.
Madam Speaker, I move that the Senior Counsel and Senior Attorney Bill be read a second time. Madam Speaker, I never thought I would be bringing such a bill before this House whilst I was Attorney General, whilst I am Attorney General. It was never my intention, nor part of my instructions when we were preparing the government's programme, to do so. There were other enactments which we were looking at and which some of them have already been passed this year. However, here we are today, with a proposed legislation to clarify and improve the process for the appointment of senior counsel and senior attorneys. One born out of necessity and forged in a spirit of dialogue. One which I hope will put to rest the utter confusion that has reigned recently on the subject. But first, Madam Speaker, allow me to address a vital question. How did we get to this? You see, the tradition of conferring titles upon lawyers did not begin in our part of the world. It began, as many of our legal habits did, like addressing the Chief Justice as my lady, in England. The title of King's Counsel or Queen's Counsel, depending on the sovereign, first appeared in the early 17th century. It was a recognition of seniority, skill, and service to the crown, and for centuries it remained one of the most visible markers of professional distinction at the English bar. Originally, the title was a personal mark of favour, of royal favour, granted directly by the monarch on the advice of the Lord Chancellor. It was not the judiciary that conferred it, but the executive acting through the sovereign's prerogative. After all, it was the King's or Queen's Counsel. Yet the courts themselves quickly gave it life. They recognized the precedence that came with the title and allowed those appointed His Majesty's Counsel learned in law to enjoy privileges that ordinary counsel did not. They were heard first in court. They sat within the inner bar as opposed to the outer bar, and they wore silk gowns, hence the term that survives to this day, taking silk. Those privileges, though symbolic, were not without consequence. They signified a degree of mastery of advocacy and of trust in the advocate's independence. Today in the United Kingdom, the system still bears the imprint of its royal origins, but it has been modernized to reflect democratic and merit-based principles. The appointment is now handled by an independent body. Applications are invited publicly. Candidates are assessed against clear criteria, including integrity, understanding of the law, excellence in advocacy, and contribution to the profession. Recommendations are made to the Lord Chancellor, who then advises the King. And we all know who the Lord Chancellor is and where does he sit in Parliament. You will have noted, of course, Madam Speaker, that the Lord Chancellor, being the Minister of Justice in the United Kingdom and a member of Cabinet, the role is that of an executive, of someone of the executive. The final step is the issue by the King of letters patent, but the process itself is essentially the result of the work of the independent panel, which includes lay members alongside judges and senior lawyers. The idea is to ensure that excellence at the bar is recognized by society at large, not merely by the profession itself. Now, across the Commonwealth, the model evolved in different ways. In some jurisdictions, especially those that have become republics, the title of King's or Queen's Counsel have been replaced by the title Senior Counsel. In Australia, for instance, Senior Counsel are appointed by the Chief Justices of each state, often upon the advice of a selection committee that consults widely amongst judges, peers, and the profession. The criteria are again merit-based, demonstrated ability in advocacy, integrity, and independence. In Canada, the evolution followed a somewhat different path. The title of Queen's or King's Counsel remained, but responsibility for appointments passed to provincial governments under statute. In most provinces, the Attorney General or Cabinet makes the appointment, sometimes following the advice of the Chief Justice or of an advisory committee, composed of senior members of the bench and the bar. Eligibility criteria are often codified: a minimum number of years in practice, record of integrity, significant professional achievement, contribution to the administration of justice or to the community. Let us take the precise examples of British Columbia in Canada. The King's Council title is conferred under the King's Council Act by the Lieutenant Governor in Council, acting on the recommendation of the Attorney General. Before making any recommendation, the Attorney General must consult a small advisory group composed of the Chief Justice of British Columbia, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of British Columbia, and 2 lawyers nominated by the Law Society. In practice, this group is supported by a broader advisory committee. The Attorney General retains the final discretion to advise Cabinet. India's system for designating senior advocates, roughly analogous to our senior counsel, had long been criticized for arbitrariness and lack of transparency. In the case of Jai Singh in 2017, petitioners challenged the existing practice as a beauty contest because the process lacked objective criteria, public call, or reasoned rejections. As a result of that litigation, the court framed guidelines of 2018 for designating senior advocates. Under those guidelines, a permanent committee for designation of senior lawyers was to be constituted, comprising the Chief Justice of India as chair, 2 senior Supreme Court judges, the Attorney General, and a bar member nominated by the chair. Applications are evaluated via a secretariat that collects data on reputation, volume of work, nature of work, advocacy record, and professional standing. All this is then forwarded to the committee for its decision. Madam Speaker, I could go on and speak about Singapore, Hong Kong, South Africa, but it would belabor my point, which is there is a great variety of systems in place around the world in established democracies, and they all have chosen particular combinations of roles for the judiciary and or the executive and or their professional peers. Now, let us see what avails here today. In Mauritius in 1984, the Law Practitioners Act did not provide for the titles, as the British awards of QCs were still in place. Things changed with the advent of the Republic. In 1992, Counsel Emeritus and Solicitor Emeritus were introduced in Section 9A of the Law Practitioners Act, and their mode of designation was one we still use today. The said Section 9A was, by virtue of Act 6 of 1995, amended, and the appellations of counsel